Hi, thanks for joining me. So I'm going to talk a bit about Web3 enabled social networks and also about the DApp that we've built, kind of encompassing these ideas. So let's start with who I am. So my name is Logan Saether. I'm a developer, entrepreneur, technologist, and educator. You can reach me at these social handles, and you can also invest into me in the DApp that we built. And I'll show you what that is and how to do that later. So first, just to cover like a general overview of what I mean by Web3 enabled social networks versus what we had before. So what I'm calling the first wave of social networks are like the Facebooks, the Instagrams, LinkedIn, stuff like that. So what they did was their monetization model involved basically capturing user data and capturing their attention by ads and kind of manipulating the feeds that the users would get so that the ad values would be higher. And the reason they were able to do this is because they operated as kind of siloed dictatorships of the web. So they were the ones who controlled the algorithms that gave you your feeds, and they controlled who was able to be on the platform and who wasn't able to be on the platform, and who could say what on the platform and who couldn't say something. So because that's generally feels like not a good thing to be interacting with on the internet, and now that we have the technologies to kind of make a better system, we can democratize the social networks. And what that means is that we give users back control of their data. We allow users to have the freedom to curate their own feeds or to pick who is curating their feeds. And we remove the ability for anyone to censor someone on their platform. So some of the tools that we have available to do this are Curation Markets, Decentralized Storage, and personal tokens. So Curation Markets are one of the more popular examples of them are the TCRs, so the token curated registries. And these are, to simplify them, lists that are curated by token holders. So it allows for subjective content to be staked on with real value, and for the people who have chosen the best options and have staked their value on the best options to be rewarded back for picking the best options. So it allows people to participate more freely into how their feeds are generated. And it also opens up this interesting incentivization for users. So someone who doesn't, someone who's doing the curating can actually earn money from curating, which is a really cool possibility. But it also gives the ability for people to switch. So if they don't like how one TCR is being curated, they can switch to another one. And if more people agree with that, that TCR could become more valuable. So the next one is decentralized storage. And this is kind of giving the data, the power of the data back to the users and allowing them to choose what they share and how they share it. And then the third one here are the personal tokens. And these are, in one aspect, perhaps one of the more powerful tools that we have, but also the most controversial. And actually, it's the one that I'll be kind of zooming into and focusing on for this presentation. So to give a kind of high-level overview of what I mean by personal tokens is the idea that we can tokenize. So it's taking the idea that we want to tokenize things to the extreme, and if we want to tokenize everything, so if we want to tokenize property, we want to tokenize game items, we want to tokenize whatever object, why not also tokenize yourself and tokenize your attention, tokenize your time? So some of the use cases for these tokens lay in creators. So artists or musicians can attach the tokens to their future art. And there's been artists who have done this already. So they release tokens, and they say this token is worth 15 square centimeters of one of my portraits that I will make in the future. It could also be used to sell future event openings or tickets to concerts. As well, influencers can use these tokens to trade stuff like shoutouts during a video stream or placements into their feed. And freelancers can also trade their time and consultations for these tokens. So besides the fact that it unlocks this ability for individuals to represent their time or attention in these in a fungible currency, we also have the interesting property that it allows them to build communities. So one interesting thing about tokens, and as a token holder, you feel like you have a stake into whatever community that this token represents. So a lot of us might be here because we hold Ether, or that we bought Ether at some point, and that has attracted us together. Maybe not, but there is this potential that the people who hold the tokens have a certain sense of community. It also, because the token is tied to the creator's time or attention, it also allows people to share the risk of a creator early in their career, but also to share in the success if that creator becomes popular later. And as I mentioned before, this idea is pretty controversial. A lot of people think it's a really bad idea. And they compare it to stuff like indentured servitude. So saying if someone owns my token, for instance, and I trade my token for my time, then does that person own me because they own a token representing my time? There's also the possibility that this whole idea of tokenizing yourself turns into a big dystopian nightmare. And to be fair, there's a lot of unsolved technical issues involved with it. And I mentioned a few here. So there's the whole idea of dispute resolutions when you trade your token. How do you actually enforce that? There's also the idea that without a good identity system, we can have people basically running scams. And the third one is just how do we seed the value into these personal tokens? So besides all of these really hard problems that people have pointed out, we decided to go ahead and try the idea anyway. And so we built a dApp called Convergent, and it allows for creators to launch personal tokens and to attach this token to their time or attention. So to give a kind of use case overview, I'll use this penguin, and let's call him Picasso the penguin. So Picasso the penguin is a gallery painter or is a landscape painter that wants to have his first gallery showing. The problem is that the gallery costs $300 to rent for the night. And Picasso knows that if he gets his paintings in front of people at this gallery, that he'll sell some, but he just doesn't have the capital up front to rent this gallery. So Picasso wonders what he can do. And he remembers that he attended EthCC, and he heard this talk about this cool dApp named Convergent. So he takes out his laptop, he goes to the Convergent dApp, and he's presented with this big red button that says launch. And so he clicks this button, and he mints a new token. And he now has a token on the Ethereum blockchain, and he can choose to trade whatever services he wants for that token. So, because he wants to have a gallery opening, he decides to trade an invite to his gallery premiere for his token. Now, so this token is generated in like an interesting way. So it's not just an ICO token that will just have a fixed supply and you have to put it on an exchange to have liquidity. But it's tied to what's called a bonding curve, which generates this token continuously along a price curve. So this line on top represents the price of the token when someone buys it, and the line on the bottom represents the price of the token when someone sells it. And the difference between these two lines is the money that Picasso will get for his campaign of having a gallery showing. So Picasso goes and he promotes his token. He tells people that they can now invest into his future gallery. And investors come and start contributing and buying Picasso's token. So this just shows that the first investor at the bottom will pay 1 ETH for the token, and the price moves up linearly so that the second investor pays 2 and the third investor pays 3. And so Picasso now has enough ETH to trade into dollars and to rent his gallery for his premiere. So I'll go into a bit more about this from a technical perspective. So I mentioned that this token is minted from what's called a bonding curve. So bonding curves are, yeah, I guess I covered it before. Just this way to mint the token along this price path. So everything under the sell curve in this blue reserve portion, that's what's held into the contract that'll incentivize sells. It gives this nice property that this token is liquid from the start, and the person who launches this token doesn't need to worry about putting their token on an exchange or always making sure there's liquidity for this token, but they can basically just launch the token and let the smart contract do the rest of the work. So bonding curves are sometimes called automated market makers. They were, I think, first widely used in the Bancor protocol, and that's where they get this name of automated market makers. But they allow for the continuous minting and burning of the token, and for people to just permissionlessly buy and sell whenever they want. So we built the smart contracts for the dApp. We call the contracts liquid, since they give liquidity to the tokens. And it allows for these bonding curves to have different slopes and different differences between them. Eventually, we think it'd be cool if these would change dynamically based off of different factors. And that's basically like a design decision that can be made by the individual. So they can say that as time goes on from the deployment, the difference between the curves, so the amount that they are getting from the purchases of the token can grow or shrink depending on what they want it to do. So the next question after everybody is able to launch their token is what can we do with this token? So besides just fundraising in this cool bonding curve method, what else can we do when everybody has a token? So we've thought of a few ideas, and I'll just mention 3 of them that we're kind of planning on integrating into our DApp. So the first one is the feeds, and we're calling these the Polaroids. And the idea is to kind of have like an Instagram attached to these personal tokens. And the holders of the tokens can stake on posts from the creator. And the popular posts can reward the stakers into the feeds. So it unlocks this whole kind of curation market around these personal tokens. You can also do access control based on these tokens. So one thing that we've kind of seen lately is that with fundraising methods for creators like Patreon, they have the ability to deplatform some creators. So that got us thinking of how we can do better with tokens. And how you can do that is, so one thing that Patreon offers is this kind of exclusive zone on the website where only the supporters can view this feed. So you can do that with tokens as well. You can say that this post requires 5 of my tokens to view, or this post requires 10 of my tokens to view, or this entire section of my website requires 15 tokens to view. And you can replicate this exclusive access zone. And then one of the more experimental ideas is to have personal prediction markets, or just polls. On a high level, polls. But what they are prediction markets that creators can use to kind of dictate career choices. So the example I have here is that an actor wants to see if, or an actor is wondering whether or not taking a role in a specific movie might make or break their career. And no one has any idea whether or not this will actually make or break their career. But there's been research done that when people put value and bet on the outcome, there's a greater chance to predict the truth than there is just from polling without staking any value. So the actor can create a personal prediction market based on their personal token, and their holders can stake their value onto this question, whether yes or no. And after the deed is done, the creator can come settle the market, and the holders that voted the right way of the outcome will get rewarded for being right, and the ones who were wrong will lose some of their stake. So it reinforces this idea of community and like true believers into the creator. So yeah, that's all I have. The DApp is live. You can create your own economy and launch your own personal token today. I guess I can take questions. So I can't give you a lawyer's perspective because I'm not a lawyer and I haven't studied law at all. But I know from our perspective, like with Convergent and the dApp that we built, we're not structuring this as a security in any way. What we're doing is we have terms that when you use the dApp, you agree to these terms. And the terms basically just say that these tokens are vouchers. And they don't actually guarantee any right into getting these services, but the creators and the influencers are offering these services and at any time can stop offering them.
Okay, so it's directly on the project owner side, not based on your application.
Yeah, so it's based on the creators side. Yeah, so I think we have thought about it. We haven't found a suitable solution yet. So this is in one of the really hard technical issues around this, and I put this as dispute resolutions because I think what you were describing was this idea that like a closed group of people could upvote each other and push content to the top. That, let's say, a powerful minority wanted that a larger majority didn't agree with, or something along those lines. And so the answer is we don't have a suitable solution yet, but it is something we've thought about. And along these lines, I've been looking a lot into Augur prediction markets and how they handle dispute resolution. Augur. So when you say, so on our platform, what individuals do is tokenize either their time, their attention, or their services. So they don't, or they can, but the idea isn't that they tokenize like material objects, but rather something that they can provide.